Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and we're going to continue this video on this Tama True Touch training snare pad. I recently released a video where I showed you this and then a head pad I've been using. But today I'm going to show you how I retrofit this thing to make it sound a little bit better, a little bit different, and get rid of this mesh head, which I hate. I'm just not a fan of mesh heads, and they tear up your sticks. Now, like I showed you in the previous video, you can put this big fat snare muffler on here and protect your sticks. But the response isn't really the same. It takes a little more work. Also, one thing about this pad that I forgot to mention in the previous video is that it does sound different in different spots. So as you get towards the edge, it's actually a lot better. But when you get towards the center, not as good. So we're going to hope to remedy some of this. So what we're going to do is take this thing apart. I put these little caps on here on these tension rods in my last video. I'm going to take those off. And like I said, one thing I love about this practice pad is the ability to do rim shots with this rubber part. Without any danger of damaging your sticks. Here I'm using these very expensive zebra wood sticks that I make, and no dents at all, so we're in good shape. I want to tell you exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take this Remo Ambassador 10-inch head, replace this mesh head. Also, I'm going to replace this foam piece. So once I dissect this, you'll see what's inside. So the first thing we'll do is we'll loosen up these tension rods here. They're very tight. Normally I have them as tight as they possibly can go, all around, so I get the best tension. You can also play with it loose though. So before I use this drill here, we're going to loosen these up so there's no chance of any damage being done. Make sure you have it on reverse, okay? All right, and you'll see it's this little piece of thin metal here. It's a little difficult to get out. I'm going to be careful here with this scissor. Okay. And just make sure all of them are loose, and there you go. That's all it is. It's a pretty ingenious design, very, very simple. Made to be mass-produced. Okay, so then we have this head. We've all seen these mesh heads before. Okay, so I'll probably throw that away eventually. And what we have is this piece of foam that sits in this sort of snare bed, and you have this kind of snare sound. I'm not sure what's in here exactly, but that's what gives you that fake snare sound. And you see what we have here. I'll hold it up. It's just basically a piece of sheet metal. Okay, no big deal. So it's very, very simple. The best thing about this pad, like I keep saying, is this rubber rim. So what we'll do is we'll keep this in here, but we're going to put a much more firm piece of rubber. So what I like to do for these kinds of rubber inserts, and I've done them on some of my really old quiet tone pads that are bad, they wear out after a while, is use these yoga mats. So I buy these at the flea market for like $4. There's a guy who sells them to me. They're great. I use them also for padding drum cases. They're fantastic for that. It's a very dense foam, so it's perfect. And you see here I've traced this outline. It's not great, but with a Sharpie of the 8-inch foam right here. So hopefully, after I trim it a bit, it'll fit in there. So we're going to cut this quickly. Okay, and it does not need to be pretty. In fact, you want to cut it a little smaller. It'll never be seen, and it doesn't really matter how accurate it is. You could use some sort of X-Acto knife if you're really serious about it, but I just like to get it done quickly. All right, so there you go, okay? So we'll use this for other cutouts. Like I said, I have a ton of these yoga mats that I buy for things. They're even great to stand on. I double them up when I'm doing my woodworking and I'm doing my wood turning for my sticks. All right, so this fits in there nicely, okay? Now it's going to take a little while to lay down. So one thing I'll do to get more tension, the problem is I can't get enough tension with the mesh head or this Remo head. So I'm going to double this up like that. Okay, now there's two ways you can do it. You can do it with this head on top, or this rubber on top, or reverse them. I get a little bit better rebound, I feel, when I have the harder part on top of the foam. And then we'll do that, okay? We'll get the head sit on there. And problem with this, it's not like a regular drum rim, so it goes all over the place. And we'll probably cut here and fast forward so I can find these holes. So once you get all these tension rods in the holes, which is tricky, you gotta press down, and then you'll just try to get them as even as possible. We're probably gonna tighten this almost all the way. Although we doubled up the rubber in there. So we have the piece of foam and then the piece of yoga mat. And I'm just going to go around and tighten. I don't use the drill here. And the trick is, which is tricky, is to get rid of all these wrinkles, okay? To do that, you got to really tighten it up. All right, so I've tightened these pretty much all they can go, all the way around, and the wrinkles will go away. We'll do it even more. So, in other words, until it won't go anymore. So there's no question about any kind of special tuning. And then what you're going to have is kind of an old Ludwig pad sound. That's just fantastic. Now one thing I'll do is I will sand this Remo coated head slightly, so again I don't ruin the tips of my sticks. I always do that on my classical snare drum heads as well. And this drum gets a great rim shot sound now. And it's a completely different sound with that mesh head. Number one, you lose a lot of that fake snare sound, whatever's in that tray, which I don't like anyway, so. And it really, really comes close to the old vintage pads that I love, but you also get the rim shot. Now, one thing that might happen is you may get some head wear pretty quick. One thing you can try is use an Emperor. I haven't tried that yet. That's a double head, or a thicker head, obviously. And that will hold up longer. And that'll probably be a good thing to try. Or you can try to use a Diplomat. The 359s, the original Ludwig vintage heads, had the really, really thin tambourine slash practice pad heads on there. They were so thin, and you can't get those anymore. They don't make them. And the rim was tiny around there, almost like a Doombeck kind of rim on there. So those heads are impossible to find, and really to replace that head, you have to tuck one out of calf. It's pretty much the only way to do it there. But I really think this is a great solution, this Tama True Touch. Let me give you the exact number on it because I wrote it down. I always forget. Yeah, it's called a Tama True Touch AAD 10-inch snare pad. The number is TTSD10, which is obviously 10-inch. I think we found a new pad that I could recommend to my students. Now, these things are expensive. I got this one on Reverb or eBay or something from a nice gentleman for, I think, about 60 bucks. So, but I think they're about 129. But if you wait long enough, they'll come down in price, I think, or they might disappear like all these good products do. But I feel like you have to modify it to get a really good response. And one thing also that's great, you can do buzz rolls on it. Let's try some different sticks. These are real heavy leopard wood sticks that I showed you in that other video. And we'll try my warm-up stick, which is normally a reverse tip Purple Heart. That feels great. And it's a little higher pitched, you see, because of these reverse tips. The ability to have a rim that won't leave any marks on your stick and gives you a good pop is kind of priceless. All right, so I hope you got something out of this, and maybe if you find one of these pads and you use some different heads, you can let me know. I'd like to try all kinds of things, maybe some of the Evans orchestra heads and just anything. It's real easy to change the heads. You see the trick with the rubber yoga mat. That's what I suggest doing. It's extremely cheap, and then you can use the rest to, to coat your snare drum case. And that's what I used to do. I used to buy cases without foam, which was a lot cheaper. And then I would just use these mats or whatever to glue the foam in there with rubber cement. And that worked great. Okay, so we'll see you next time. Thanks.